Welcome everyone. Shavua Tov and Shana Tova. Happy New Year. Please. And just want to really pause before we begin and really recognize this is the first time I'm gathering with many people from our congregation after a really scary thing yesterday.
Right.
And just want to give so much thanks for the safe return of the hostages, and just to send our prayers to them and to each of them and to their family members and to the community members and those who their congregation and all who helped make that freedom possible, that rescue possible. And just a prayer in our liturgy that we have every morning. We give thanks for freedom, not just for the crossing of the sea, but we just recognize that we captives are freed. We hope, we pray, and in this case, they were. So please join me in this blessing. I just put it in the chat. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam matir asurim. Praise to you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who frees the captive.
Right.
And just sending love to all of you and comfort, hugs, and glad we can gather today for the sweetness. And also, like, as I'm going to talk about soon, there's just so many metaphors of how we are like trees, and really want to the trees are strong, they are rooted, they bend with the wind, and our tradition is so strong and so rooted. We as a people are strong and rooted, and here we are coming together, celebrating this sweet holiday in solidarity as a Jewish people who have endured so much. And we are alive and we are well. And with that, let's say a Shehechianu.
Yeah, good.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Shehechianu imanu lazman hazeh.
Amen.
Yay, yay, day, 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 day. Yay, day, 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 day. Yay, yay, day, 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 day. Day, 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 day. I invite Florence to read for us a poem about a tree.
Can you read it? Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you. The poem is called Stone Tree. The seed fell to the damp soil, hooked itself, grabbed its hold into the earth, and alone began its life journey. Open to the elements, rain, wind, fire, it grew. It protected itself as adversities tried to command the little tree's outcome. It grew. Seasons would come and go, and the tree was little no more. It accepted what God and nature had to give. The tree became strong, bending into the wind, proud of the winter's snow crowning her branches. She had a home for God's creatures. I sit under this tree, awed, asking her to tell me the secrets of her life on this earth, how she survived in spite of us. She only whispers in the wind, singing her song, "Oh God, protect the trees." Thank you.
I think it's beautiful.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Beautiful way to begin our evening.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
So this evening we will sprinkle songs with poems, with a couple of teachings. And with that, we will begin with some learning. So this year, I've been thinking a lot about a teaching or a quote that is in Deuteronomy. That's a very popular to be said and recited on this holiday, that says, "A person is like a tree in the field." And it comes from Deuteronomy 20:19. I'm just going to paste it in the chat for you.
Oh, great.
Yeah. And this is Everett Fox's translation. "When you besiege a town for many days, waging war against it to seize it, you are not to bring ruin on its trees by swinging away with an axe against them, for from them you eat. Them you are not to cut down, for are the trees of the field human beings able to come against you in a siege?" The Hebrew there, where it says, "For are the trees of the field human beings," is ki ha'adam eitz hasadeh. Now, if we take that out of this text, it really is translated as, "For the man, the human, is a tree of the field." Just taken right out, that's what it says. But here inserted in this text, as you can see, Everett Fox and other translators too pretty consistently translate it as a question. For are the trees of the field human beings? Rashi says that the word ki, that I translated as for, ki is really meaning perhaps. It's a question. It's saying, did you think perhaps that rules that apply to human beings are the same as those applying to fruit-bearing trees? Why should the tree which is giving man of its fruit suffer and endure the hardships of the population of the town you have laid siege to? Seeing that these trees are not guilty of anything, why would you destroy them? And so, based on Rashi and Everett Fox, who's a very literalist in his translations, this quote from Deuteronomy that I've been seeing all over the place in texts everywhere I look this holiday, "For a man is like a tree in a field," that this quote actually in its context is saying that we are not like trees in the field, but rather because we are not, because a tree is not like us, we need to treat trees differently. And in a situation when there is a war and we have conquered a land, the people we are conquering can defend themselves, but the trees cannot. We must care for them. We must watch out for them. They are defenseless, and they will become our food in this land that we have conquered. They are necessary to give us our life. But as I said, many people like to pull this out of context and say that we are indeed like a tree. And there are so many examples of this. And they always go back to quoting this very quote, which I find very interesting. So I wanted to share that with you so you know the context. It's really, I think, important for us to see quotes in context. But I also really like pulling it out of context because I love what it says. And what we're going to find in just a few texts that I'm going to look at is that again and again and again, our tradition says that in fact, we are like trees. So we're going to peek at a few of those. So in the Psalms, the very first Psalm that we have, so this is just this beautiful bounty of songs and poetry of our tradition. In the very beginning, it has this. So again, I will paste it in the chat. It's going to have some Hebrew in it too. But I will read it to us. Okay, so this is Psalm 1, verses 1 through 4. It says, Happy is the man who has not followed the counsel of the wicked, or taken the path of sinners, or joined the company of the insolent. Rather, the teaching of the Lord, and literally the Hebrew here is the Torah of Adonai, is his delight, the man's delight. And he studies, recites, utters that teaching. Again, teaching is really the Hebrew is Torah, day and night. He is like a tree planted beside streams of water, which yields its fruit in season, whose foliage never fades, and whatever it produces thrives. And here I'm just lifting out the beginning of this. V'haya ke'etz shetul al palgei mayim. For he is like a tree. But not so the wicked. Rather, they are like chaff that the wind blows away. Okay, so our very first psalm, the very first entrance, said again, it's saying, when we do not go the wicked ways and listen to the wicked things, but instead we follow Torah, which is the opposite of wicked, the Torah, which is so good. We are in delight. And we then are like a tree planted beside streams of water, yielding fruit in the right season. Our foliage is never fading, and everything we produce will thrive. And it's really beautiful. If you imagine, I read different commentaries on this, where a tree not planted next to water can't thrive, can't produce, isn't sustained, will wilt. But here, this idea, when we really find that right path and we stay close to Torah, and we are the people who were given Torah, if we can really hold it close to us, then we are a tree by the water. We have a constant source of replenishment, of nourishment, of hydration. We are both all rooted, and then we are nourished, and we can produce. We can give off even more. We will not fade. We will not blow away. There is this idea that when we stay close to Torah, cleave to Torah, that we are forever young and alive, and we manifest more life. It's beautiful, right? And it's absolutely saying we are like a tree. If we do that. And so when we stay close to Torah, we have this great vitality. And of course, many of us are very familiar with another psalm that is the psalm of Shabbat, Psalm 92. And I will paste that with the transliteration, and we'll get a chance to sing it in a little while.
Bye-bye. I just wanted to tell you, I don't know if you saw my hand.
Oh, I didn't. I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
So excuse me. I just wondered if you knew the song.
The song about from Psalm 1?
A tree planted by the water.
I don't. Is there a song for it? I imagine.
There is. It's a song that was sung. Do you know it, Randall?
O Shekhinah, I shall not be moved. O Shekhinah, I shall not be moved, like a tree planted by the water. We shall not be moved.
Well, originally it was a Black person's song. I shall not be moved. I shall not be moved, like a tree planted by the water. I shall not be moved. Same melody. You changed the words.
That's so great. Thank you, Florence. I'm so grateful for that interruption, and to know I did not know about that. And Randall, I'm so thrilled that you knew it, could sing it for us. And I particularly, of course, love it, as we are in the midst of Martin Luther King's birthday and just lifting up racial justice this weekend, and finding yet another way that we are connected to the work of racial justice with our stories, these shared stories, these shared texts. Beautiful. Thank you. I love that. And so on to another song that we know very well. Tzadik ata yifrach I'm not going to sing it all right now, but the righteous shall flourish like the palm tree and thrive like a cedar in Lebanon. The righteous people, it's speaking about us. And very similar to the psalm above it, Psalm 1. It says, they shall be planted in the house of the eternal, planted in Adonai. They shall still bring forth fruit, even in old age, remaining fertile and fresh, attesting to the eternal is upright, my rock, in whom there is no wrong. So again, this imagery that when we follow the paths of Torah and of the divine, that we will flourish like a palm tree, thrive like a cedar. And the palm tree is really the date palm. And we'll come back to that a little bit later. Planted in God, planted in divinity, planted in holiness, in this deep connection and rootedness to this expansive mystery and life-giving force. And we will bring fruit for all of our days. There's no end to the fruit that we will bring forth. It's beautiful, beautiful.
Rabbi Julie, may I interject a word? That phrase is also an Israeli folk dance, which I've taught many times, Tzadik Katamar Yifrach,
Yeah.
and moving, waving like the palm tree.
Ah,
Mm.
yeah, I think, is it like
The dance.
Tzadik katamar yifrach yifrach, Tzadik katamar yifrach? Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. I
Someday we could do it together. Yeah.
I can't wait to dance with you, with all of you. I think I had a fun moment in rabbinical school where we did Israeli dancing, and that was one of them. I'm
Yeah.
sure. Yes.
Good one.
Wonderful. That's great. Can't wait. So another teaching. We have the mystic tree of life teaching, and Chazan Randall is going to probably touch on this some too in his teaching, but very briefly, we have this idea of the tree of life, the sphirot, the emanations of God, the keter and chokhmah and bina and chesed, gevura, tiferet. Those of you who've been to the Havarah has a beautiful stained glass of this in their sanctuary. It's a very common, common as an art form. And I wasn't quick enough to get one to be able to put up for all of you, but I think many of you know what I'm speaking of, this emanations. And this tree of life is said to be sort of like an inverted tree, where its roots are in heaven and the branches and the trunk are all these divine attributes. And there's this idea that there's a flow moving through it from the highest point in the heavens coming down to us on earth. This divinity, this vitality, this life is flowing downwards from the heavens to being channeled to us here on earth. And it is infusing the world with divinity, with holiness. And this time of year with Tu B'Shvat is when the sap is beginning to run. And in the land of Israel, the almond blossoms are blooming. And so we have that image of the sap rising in the trees. And there's this idea that at this time we are also called forth to help the divine sap flow down through those emanations. And Torah says right in the beginning, right in the very, very beginning of creation, that humans were made b'tselem Elohim, in the image of God. And this tree of life, this mystical tree of life, is really a example or a way in which we can envision God. And so if we are like the tree of life, then the tree of life is inside of us. And we basically have inside of us sort of this imprint of it. And many people say when they look at the tree of life, they can see a head and shoulders and the heart and the limbs moving down. And then we talk about that these emanations, these qualities are actually inside of us, flowing through us, and that at these aspects we exercise when we're super kind, or we're more rigid and boundaried, or we're in glory, or we're deeply grounded. All of these different ways that we can be godly in the world. And so essentially that this God, this sphero, these emanations are literally mapped onto our bodies. And so the work of our life gets to be to bring forth these things. And the work of the great tree that represents all that is holy and divine is right here inside of us. And so this time of year, we're really called forth as the sap is moving to ignite that sap. Another teaching. It is a tree of life to them that hold fast to it, and all of its supporters are happy. Eitz Chaim hi lemachzikim ba betomchecha meushar. This text that we sing when we put away our Torah, when we celebrate our Torah in our prayers, comes from Proverbs 3:18. And I'll just put it there for you in the text, just to see it. On the surface of the text, it's saying that the Torah is like a tree. And so this is a little different than saying that we are like a tree, right? Saying that the Torah is like a tree, and we should hug this tree, and it will make us happy. And all of us know that hugging trees, I think we know, I hope we know that hugging trees can make us happy. Zizi Elisheva and I were talking about this just the other day, right? So we should hug this tree. We should cherish this tree that is our Torah. And if we take this and we go back to the very first quote that we talked about, that when we're invading a foreign place, that we should protect the trees. We should not destroy the trees because they need protecting. We can almost transpose this idea from Proverbs onto that, to say that, so we know that we're not supposed to attack trees. We're not supposed to attack the Torah. We're not to attack her teachings. We're not to attack her ways. And when we're invading this foreign place, we're invading the enemy. The enemy is the evil that can get in the way of our Torah and our connection to Torah. So we are sort of like the warriors, the protectors of all that is good, that is Torah, that is like a tree. And so that's just another spin on all of this. As we're protectors of the trees, we're actually protectors of Torah. All right, another little gem. So similar, I've kind of said this already, but I like the way they said it. So Rabbi Eliezer Shlomo Schick says, Tu B'Shvat is the new year, the Rosh Hashanah of the fruit trees. The Torah says that man is like a tree of the field. Therefore, this day is also a new year for the Jewish people and reveals a special aspect of Rosh Hashanah. As a new year, Tu B'Shvat is a time for repentance and renewal. An essential part of repenting is renewing the life force and starting over again. And Yitzchak Buxbaum teaches, when the trees are renewing themselves and preparing new fruits at this time of year, each of us should then consider how to renew ourselves to produce new fruits in the service of the divine. Just another way to say that idea that I was talking about with the tree of life. And then the final little piece I want to bring in, blew my mind when I read it. I really love it. There's this Kabbalistic book of song called Perek Shira. And it says that all creatures Actually, all creations are in constant praise of the divine, of the creator. And Rabbi Eliezer Shlomo Schick again writes this: "You should know, my beloved children, that God brings into being, enlivens, and keeps in existence all the creation, inanimate, vegetable, animal, and human being. They are all the very essence of divine life energy. Everything is a garment for the light of the infinite one. All created things are crying out and revealing awesome and wondrous revelations of godliness that hint to a person how to return to God." So it's just a beautiful imagining that we are all, and we are with all that was created, which includes the trees, an expression of the divine. Therefore, we are like the trees, we are like the rocks, we are like the mosquitoes, we're like the penguins, the mountains, the grass. We are all an expression of the divine. And then this Perek Shira, this song text, names all these different plant species and talks about how the people who tend those plant species will then become like them. And as we know, like as again given in our very early teaching in the book of Genesis, that we are to tend all that's been created. We're to tend the garden. And so it goes on to, and it gives quotes for every one of many, many species, but it's just some examples. I'm not going to go into all the quotes, but the ideas. Fig trees. "Those who serve God day by day will ripen and blossom and will be rewarded, just like the figs who ripen little by little, day by day. Therefore, we are like fig trees when we tend and serve and do good deeds." Date trees. They pulled in here Sadiq Katamar Yifrach, that one, that all righteous people are straight and tall like the date palm, and we tend those, and so when we become just like those date trees when tending them, and also all the righteous good deeds that we do. Talked about the grapevine. Said there's a teaching that there is a blessing inside every single grape, every single one. And as we know, living here in the wine country, there's a lot of grapes that happen on vines. Each grape has a blessing. So too, each of us is a blessing and has blessings within us, even when we transgress. It's a beautiful teaching. So a grapevine is not a tree, but it's, in the realm of the plant species. Finally, a pomegranate. We have like rosy cheeks. If we have rosy cheeks, our cheeks are like the pomegranate, rosy with beauty because of our humble and beautiful love for God. And it goes on. So to take all of this, all these sweet little gems, all these fruits, seeds I wanted to pass on to you, we have this incredible metaphor. Our tradition loves metaphors. And one of the most important and biggest metaphors is the tree. So it's something we can ponder on this holiday and beyond, is how are each of us like a tree in our strength and our rootedness and our flexibility and our righteousness, our wisdom, our teachings, our faith, and all that we give and all that we receive, and how we bring forth and renew divine holiness and blessing in our lives, in the lives of others, for all of our people, and for our world. And just again, kind of returning to the darkness of yesterday and how I began tonight, may we be even more rooted with our commitment to each other, the beauty of our tradition, the strength of our legacy, and the power of our collective wisdom, like a great, great tree. And may we turn to Torah, our tree of life, infused with the inspiration from the tree of life, knowing that we are an imprint of holiness, its keepers, tenders, and manifestors. May it be so. Shana Tova.
Amen.
Tova.
Oh, All right, I was gonna sing a song, but does anyone want to say anything? Just Dad. All right. So here's where I get to be brave. Randall is said I have to play my guitar, but I am so new at playing guitar. So but this song I wanted to sing a version of Eitz Chaim Hi that really sounds best with the guitar. So you can cheer me on as I aspire to one day play guitar.
You're in a safe place.
In a safe place, right? Okay, let's see how I do. All right. It's Chaim Hi. It's not sounding right. It's Chaim Hi. There we go. It's Chaim Hi למחזיקים בה מאושר מאושר מאושר. It's a tree of life. It's a tree of life. So read it, learn it, and follow it, and be happy. And be happy. Oh.
Shkoyach.
It's so pretty. The song. Thank you. Let us be happy. Let's hug that tree of life, that good tree of our traditions. I now invite Elizabeth, also known as Zizi Elisheva, to share a poem of hers.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
So it's actually more like a little prose piece. And yeah, it's sort of, this is less metaphorical and more just tree. I love trees. So anyway, I'll just read this little piece. I remember the old growth spruce tree grandmother from decades ago. I had decided to camp alone in the Olympic Peninsula rainforest by the Quileute River. Driving into the campground under towering beauties, I found a place to park. I wandered into a more hidden spot in the midst and was drawn to the huge mossy trunk of an incredibly tall tree. Her moss sweater was almost iridescent, sparkling with little drops of moisture like jewels. Tiny lichens, sage greenish gray, crept upon her, while filaments of webs graced the fissures of her bark. My fingers gently greeted her as I absorbed the miraculous layers of life living upon and within her. I sat down on the sweet, damp, holy earth and leaned back into the ancient, amazing presence, soft and sturdy, who held me there as I breathed in deep, deep gratitude, feeling safe and whole, nourished by her roots, so old and strong.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Psalm 92. Another tune. Sadi katamar yifrach, ke'erez balvanan yizkeh, shitulim beveit Adonai, beveit Adonai, beveit Adonai. O Januvon b'seva, L'shenem rananim yiyu, Lehagid ki yashar Adonai, to rivelo el zatoro. Tadi katamar yifrach, ke'erez balvanon yiskep. Shitulim beveit Adonai, beveit Adonai, beveit Adonai. O Jenuvun b'seva, b'shenem brananim yihu. Lehagid keyashar Adonai, turi velo ezrat tolbo. Turi velo ezrat talbo. Turi velo ezrat talbo. Once upon a time, Orya was walking with his son along a gravel country road in the warmth of the afternoon. The cicadas were singing, and in the mid-distance, there were songs of warblers and other bird songs lilted on the zephyr breezes. Maduya was nearly 13 years old, and he loved to walk with his father away from the noise of the family and the bustle of the big house. This is my time with my dad. Father, I see the birds flitting around through the branches of the trees and chasing each other around in the sky. Have they nothing more purposeful to do? What a valuable observation, my son. These birds are living the Torah that the Holy One has instilled within each and all of them. They are given an entire lifetime of birdness that they offer forth to the joy of Hashem and all who hear them. And Father, I see the trees are lovely and strong, yet they cannot move. Is not their beauty wasted by their inability to move and show off their beautiful boughs and bark and leaves? You are very observant, my son. The birds are living the Torah. The trees also are living the Torah. They began as sproutlings, young and fresh, just like you. And now they are older and much larger. Their trunk is gnarled. Their boughs are no longer as straight. They are, in fact, moving. They are moving through time, just like we are, unfolding the patterns of Torah that God set within us. Though they cannot speak, they teach the way of the forest through their actions. And so they wandered through the afternoon, sipping the sweet aroma of the air and feasting the sounds of the passing scene. Drawing near home, the sounds of the children and the animals could be heard at work and at play. So, my son, what did you learn on our walk today? Father, that every kind of thing lives, and by so living teaches the Torah that was given to us by the Holy One. And they never even had to use words. And so may we each learn the way to treat our fellows and their animals and the property and truly live Torah in our lives and only use words when necessary. A midrash. You remember Choni the rainmaker? Well, Choni was walking down the road and he saw a man planting a carob tree. Choni went up and asked him, how many years is it going to take for this tree to bear fruit? The man answered that it would take 70 years. Coney said, "Are you so healthy a man that you expect to live that length of time and eat its fruit?" The man answered, "I found carob trees in the world when I came because my ancestors planted them for me. So will I do the same for my children and my grandchildren." Throughout the temple times, Tu B'Shvat was only it was like tax day. It was like April 15th. And as the sap was rising, it was used to mark time of when the fruit from the coming year would go to this year and when would go to last year. And Tu B'Shvat was that day. Anything that was fruiting on the tree before then went to last year. And for tithing, anything on this year would go to the new year. So at that time, it was that kind of holiday. But over time, the holiday began to change. And Rabbi Julie alluded to the wonderful idea, the Kabbalistic idea of the tree of life, with the roots growing out of the divine and the branches and the boughs bringing down that shefa, bringing down that flow to us, and the fruit of the tree being the emanations of God, as Rabbi Julie has said. Or perhaps the fruit of the tree are all of the fruits that we celebrate on Tu B'Shvat. Or perhaps we too are the fruit of that tree. And so in the Kabbalistic sense, over time, there came up a Seder that was modeled on the Passover Seder that could be done in honor of the New Year's of the trees. And so throughout the years, this was in the 16th century that this Seder developed. And since that time, it has continued to evolve. In this Seder, the Kabbalists would imagine the 4 levels of the world. The level of Asiya, where we live, the physical plane, where there is great separateness between things, the world of Yetzirah, the world of emotion, the world of Bria, which was co-creation and inspiration, and finally reaching up to Atzilut, the spiritual world that we can't really see, that is veiled from us. The Kabbalists believed that there were different types of fruit that matched with each of these different levels. They called the level 1 fruit was the one that was hard on the outside, that had a shell and was soft on the inside. And they would consider ways in which we may be like that kind of fruit. And a cup of wine that was white wine, that would think about the winter when everything is still and dormant. And they would bless the wine, and that they would bless the fruit, and they would sing and move on. And in the second world, the world of Yetzirah, the date was soft on the outside and a pit on the inside, a hard thing on the inside. How are we perhaps like this level 2 fruit? They would take a second cup of wine. This one, mostly white, with a little bit of red. The coming of spring, the beginning of the blossoming of spring. And they would bless the wine, and they would bless the fruit, and they would sing. The third level. Well, the third level was very interesting. These were the fruits that the seeds go all the way through and you can eat the entire fruit. The outside and the inside is all mixed together. So too, the wine was now half and half. And they would bless the wine, and they would bless the fruit, and they would sing. And finally, for Atzilut, the spiritual. What fruit represents the spiritual, that you cannot see? When we were in New England, we used maple syrup as the essence of tree. That was our fruit. In Alaska, they did the same with birch syrup and made different mixtures of birch syrup. And along with that, they would drink the fourth glass of wine that was now all red with just a drop of white. And in doing so, and they would bless the wine, and they would bless the fruit, and they would sing. And in doing so, they would open that shefa, open the flow between the divine and us, and strengthen that tree of life, as Rabbi Julie has pointed out. Over the years, this too has changed some from the way that it was originally offered in pre-Eitz Hadar, the fruit of the lovely tree. Now, in this time when trees are threatened, in our generation, when the earth is at risk, this holiday has become an environmental holiday that we celebrate in celebration of the earth, that we may help heal this earth that we have so damaged. And it is incumbent on us to do that. For as Reb Arthur Waskow says, what the tree breathes out, we breathe in. And what we breathe out, the tree breathes in. We are the tree. O Shekhinah shall not be moved. O Lordy, I shall not be moved, just like a tree planted by the water. We shall not be moved. In the hour when the Holy One, blessed be He, created the first person, He showed him the trees of the garden and said to him, "See my works, how fine they are. Now all that I have created, I created for your benefit. Think upon this and do not corrupt and destroy my world, for if you destroy it, there is no one to restore it after you." From Ecclesiastes Rabbah.
Thank you. Yasher koach.
Thank you, Randall. That was beautiful.
It was. I felt like I was 5 listening to the stories you were telling. So, I mean, I really admire your ability to storytell. I didn't know about that. And I'm in a bit of awe.
So much comes from the kahal from which the energy comes. It's all about the flow. So whatever comes through me comes from you. Baruch Hashem.
Baruch Hashem.
Baruch Hashem.
Thank you. And with that, we get to hear a sprinkling of a gem of Wendy, a poem she wrote for us for Tu B'Shvat.
And this is more a reverie, and it was written before Shabbat, not this one that we just had, but the one before. Shortly it will be Shabbat. I must rise to light the Sabbath candles, drink the Concord grape juice, and tear a piece of challah, all the while praising Adonai. I lay back into my reclining sofa, practically drowning in my oversized plush purple blanket. My chunky, long-haired, gray and white cat, Priscilla, purrs by my side. Yet I am mesmerized by the view unintentionally captured by my gaze, and I stare through our sliding glass doors. The way the sunlight covers the passing clouds creates glowing hues of pink and yellow, while their undersides are mottled with shades of gray. The pale blue sky serves as a backdrop to this painterly display of meandering puffs that shape-shift and slowly pass by. The slumbering giants that are the mountains in the distance are dappled with melting snow. The pine and fir trees present themselves as dark green silhouettes, standing firmly and faithfully in front of this vision of color, shadow, and light. I am filled with a silence that pulses through my beating heart. It is time to move out of this all-embracing calmness. I feel as rooted to my spot as the trees are to the loamy soil, and as heavy as one. Yet I rouse myself with great effort, shaking away the remnants of a waking dream.
Thank you. A reverie for the trees. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Mhm. So Zan Randall is going to offer a song that is a song about Israel, a land flowing with milk and honey. Oh.
This was a song that I learned in my growing up from BBYO or one of the Jewish organizations, a very, very common song in the repertory. So let me just share it with you, and maybe you can even join me in singing this.
One pause.
Yep.
One sec, but just an important thing to think is that this holiday really, like, we lift up the species, the plant, the growing things of Haaretz, of the land of Israel. And so, and then like all of the fruits that we eat, like we're thinking of Israel. It's so this holiday is such a kinship. It holds such kinship with the land. So I just wanted to insert that.
Good insertion.
Okay.
Eretz zavat chalav, chalav udavash. 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 Eretz zavat chalav, chalav udavash.
Thank you.
Another dance.
Do you know that one too? There's a dance for it. Wonderful.
Next year, may we be together and do the dances that go with the songs, that go with
Yes,
the
yes.
fruits, that go with the wine, that go with the tree. Baruch Hashem.
Woohoo!
Can you hear a song?
Indeed, indeed. May it be so. So we're about to come in for a landing here. I have one more poem I wanted to share that I recently was shared with me by a colleague of mine. It's called Lost. It's written by David Wagoner. And I read this poem, and then Zizi Elisheva will sing us into our closing. Stand still. The trees ahead and bushes beside you are not lost. Wherever you are is called here, and you must treat it as a powerful stranger, must ask permission to know it and be known. The forest breathes. Listen, it answers. I have made this place around you. If you leave it, you may come back again, saying, here. No two trees are the same to raven. No two branches are the same to wren. If what a tree or a bush does is lost on you, you are surely lost. Stand still. The forest knows where you are. You must let it find you.
Wow.
That's what I said when I read it. Wow. Yeah.
Fabulous.
So I'm going to paste the words to this chant, and Zizi Elisheva, if you want to tell us a little bit about it, that'd be great.
Hi again. Can you hear me okay? I'm now in a different sound reality.
Yes.
Multimedia. So, I just feel like this last couple years has been so just beyond anything I experienced in my life before. And for me, one of the places I really find strength and solace is in the Torah of the natural world, and the Torah of just the reality, the living beingness and amazingness of trees. And so Rabbi Julie and Randall both, I think, spoke about this being a time of the sap coming up. And I was reading in a little, sorry, hold on, this is moving. There, it just kept falling down. From a Tu B'Shavat Seder that pointed out that the word for sap in Hebrew, I think saraf, is that right? Saraf is related to the fire, and just like that warming, and how the fire is rising in the trees and rising and warming it up towards springtime and making the buds and the leaves. And, so too, as, us humans, the colder time of years when it's a good time to be more contemplative and more dormant. And so here we are sort of in this transitional time. And this chant for me of Shefa's, which is called Calling Forth the Hidden Power. And the words it starts with are Kuma Adonai, rise up, O holy mystery. And one translation is save me, my God. But one of the Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch translates it as not as save us or deliver us, but grant us new life. And he calls Yeshua the undimmed vigor of one's own life and existence. And so I think of that as, our own inherent vibrance. Like each tree has its own inherent vibrance. Each of us has our own inherent vibrance. And so this time of year being this time to call upon that holy, blessed life force that courses through this universe, and calling upon them, him, her, to support us for that sap to rise in us and to empower us, because truly these times call on us to each bring our own unique and beautiful power to this world that so needs healing and justice and wholeness. And so I invite you, if you want to just listen, you can just listen. If you want to chant along, just make sure you're muted so the sound doesn't get all wacky. But Kuma Adonai Hoshieni Elohai. And it's sort of a slow one, so you can just sort of follow along. And I just want to dedicate this chant to the whole earth, the whole planet, all the beings who are suffering, and especially to the people at the margins, the people who've been structurally excluded and who, don't have what we need for wholeness. And, may we all find our own ways of rising up, using our life force for Tikkun Olam.
Thank you for that beautiful lullaby. Mm.
Hug the trees.
Hug the trees. Yay. Wishing all just the sweetness of the Atzilut, of the syrup, of the sap. I personally like chocolate syrup, so. Recommend that. May we all find the divine flowing through us and find it in each other, flowing in each other. And may we be inspired to keep it flowing, to keep it reaching out to
Amen.
each other.
And
And keep the
Beautiful.
poetry and the song, keep the poetry and the songs coming. Thank you to our poets and our musicians and all our Hazan Randall and all of you holy, beautiful ones for being with us tonight.
Whole community.
Thank you, Rabbi Julie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
beautifully done, Julie. Thank
Mm.
Thanks for the cold chills. That was so wonderful.
Aw,
Mm.
thank you. Mm. Good night and blessings.
Good night.
you.
Laila tov.
Tov.
Mm.
Mm.
We'll teach you dances so we can get back together.
I